What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Essential Scares podcast. The only show that dares to ask the question, is it essential? I am your Corbin, and with me today, as always, is Bobby.
We've discovered today that, try as I might, I will never be able to find my way into horny TikTok.
And Alan.
Hi. Here we are. You audience, you don't even know what we just went through. We're not going to rehash it here. Let's talk about a movie.
Yeah, we've got a show for you today. We are basically finishing up, more or less, the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise with what is perhaps the first of the meta slashers. That's right, today we're talking about Wes Craven's new Nightmare. But before we get into it, Bob Areno has a spoilerino.
I do. This will serve as your first one and only spoilerino for the hit film Wes Craven's New Nightmare. If you do not want Wes Craven's New Nightmare spoilerinoed for you, please skip to the time code and a description or show notes for our essential spoiler-free discussion. Watching this movie, I have but one question. Is Robert Englund Freddy Krueger or a coward? Alan.
All right, time for my Sinaparino. We have this film where it opens with what is clearly a movie set that is doing a new nightmare film of some kind.
He said the name.
Oh my gosh. Only to find out that Heather, also Nancy, but also Heather, is in a dream this whole time, and she's shaken awake by an earthquake that may or may not have actually happened. Comes to find out that she's being stalked. She's haunted in some way by her past experiences of being within the Nightmare franchises, and things get spookier and spookier as a stalker calls her, and her son slips deeper and deeper into what can only be described as like Freddy mania. Things are kind of ambiguous. Is it really happening? What's going on? And then everything's made very clear when her husband is brutally murdered in what is clearly a Freddy Krueger murder. So Krueger has decided to leave the films and come into the real life to get us all. And let's open it from there.
Freddy Krueger's a tulpa. Freddy Krueger's a tulpa. It's amazing.
That earthquake did happen.
The first one did happen. Yeah.
I know. I'm just saying, because there's like later in the films they're like, that we must have just missed that one, or there was a big truck that went by.
Also, Heather Langenkamp, in this movie, really channeled the experience of actually being stalked into this movie. Really kind of cool. Yeah. A large majority of this film is just Wes Craven talking to people that he's friends with, because him and Heather Langenkamp are close. She was in a lot of his movies, So
that seemed genuine. This is probably by a landslide the best acted film in the entirety of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, and I don't even think it's remotely close. Like, you could maybe say, like, there's bits of the first one that have its moments. Like, I mean, This Is God is, like, that's classic. But, like, as a total film, there's actually acting here. Like, and it's ironic considering that it's the real world meta.
I think this movie came out too early. I think that's a good place to start with this, because this movie's really good, but also, like, it's way too Hollywood. You know what I mean? Like, it's way too inner Hollywood for, like, I think a lot of people in the early 90s to give a shit about. Like, it feels like what this is clearly a first draft for Scream, right?
Yeah, 100%. This walks a Scream could run.
Yes. The problem with it is it's too close to home for Wes Craven, because it's essentially like it's like the end. It's like the latter Stephen King's A Dark Tower books, where Stephen King comes out of his cocaine haze and goes, "I've got a great idea. What if I write myself into the books?" And they're like, it's really good. It's really cool if you're into that. But I can see how a lot of people could be turned off by it. I'm
Especially considering where things ended with like with what the Nightmare franchise is, and then what this movie
not. Yeah,
kind of became.
yeah.
It's definitely not. I can't imagine if you're hanging out at the local movie theater in like 1993 and you're like, oh, did you hear that Wes is doing a new Nightmare? Didn't it come out in 94, right? Is that right?
Yeah, just keep going.
Okay, so like I can't imagine like you hear, oh, there's a new Nightmare movie coming out, and this is what you would think it would be, And I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that that's the point, right? That it was unexpected, but I mean, also like kind of the whole, this. I disagree. I think with Bobby's point that this movie is too Hollywood. I think for the mid '90s, like, I think movies about Hollywood have always been successful, right? And it's not like this was like the first movie like that, and um, there was this period of time where they started showing more like backlots, even with silly movies like
No,
Looney
I
Tunes.
agree with that. I agree with that. Yeah.
And I mean, and to Alan's point, I mean, yeah, like, is that the movie that you would have expected it to be? No, but I mean, think about where the last movie ended, right? And then try and I don't know how much like research or like how much you've tried to put yourself into the era even or like what, but like the Freddy culture at the time. I mean, this movie does a really good job of
Freddy Mania.
putting you there even if you
Yeah.
didn't know what it is. Like
Yeah.
this movie is not an exaggeration of what Freddy culture was like, right? If
No.
anything, they underplay what it was like. And I think that really
I mean, like
does a
legitimately
good
though,
job
like
with it. Yeah. Mhm.
we were all alive when this movie came out, and
I mean,
I
yes.
knew. Well, no. Well, my larger point is like Freddy Mania was still huge. Like we were all one, if that, when this movie came out, right? But
No.
if I was maybe one, when did when this movie released?
94?
What date in 94? Yeah, somebody else do research for once. That's right. Someone else do live research for once.
October 14th,
Okay,
1990.
so I was 1
I
years
were
old.
both
so
two. Suck a
thoroughly
dick,
two.
Bobby.
Thoroughly two.
Okay, so I was 1 years old, right? And you guys were 2, right? But like, give us like again maybe 4 to 5 years later, right? Freddy Krueger was still a hot commodity. Like,
yeah, I mean, Freddy Krueger is hot now, and people are still asking for new Nightmare on Elm Street movies now.
which they shouldn't do. That's just me, but
I mean, even like I've you still see people dress up as Freddy every single year. I mean,
Yeah.
like Freddy is an icon. I mean, but we've talked about that in other
Yeah.
episodes. But like, yeah, absolutely. That's
I
true.
think I think my larger point, just to kind of rebut your idea of like Hollywood, is like this movie is so insider baseball,
Mhm.
like that it and so personal that but like in a
But
weird way.
it only has one. I
What do you mean
I
it
just
only has
feel like
one? There's so many
the
moments.
core no the core concept, like just like it being about a movie that is being made, theoretically, right? And about like even the stalker element or like
So-
her being afraid of her own movie. Like these things are there, but they're not so big and so looming that they would take you out of it, I think, if you're personal. And there's plenty of movies that are about like making plays or about writing books or about whatever, and like those are obviously personal and about a creative art form that you may not be part of. Like I
So
just don't.
let me be clear, because I think for a lot of non-horror fans, New Nightmare is largely like forgotten. So I'm not saying this from a personal
Well-
standpoint, right? I'm more so largely trying to like, because I love this movie. This movie kicks ass. Like this movie straight up kicks ass. Let me be clear on that. What I'm arguing isn't that this movie doesn't kick ass. I'm arguing is like, why do people forget about this movie? Why do people like kind of like? And I think because it being as personal as it is, how insider baseball it is, and like how it is very much kind of like a return to form to the original Freddy Krueger. Like some of it for a lot of people it is very jarring and very because it's a huge flip. It's like a flip on its head. It is very much like as flipped on its head. It as like again. I'm gonna fight with this because as much as Wes Craven didn't like Nightmare 2, there are some weird elements here of it just being kind of like, what's going on? Is she crazy? Is she the killer? Is the kid the killer? What's happening here? Like happening that I think is fairly interesting. Could this all just be coincidental and we're just getting in the mind of Heather Langenkamp going insane? Like and the fact that everybody is playing themselves, it's a weird movie. It's a successful movie and a good movie, but it's weird, and we can't pretend that it's not, right? And that's largely the point.
I'm not saying it's not weird. I'm saying that I don't think that those things are why it's not as remembered in the consciousness. I mean, like it's came out at an odd time for Nightmare and for slashers in general, and not like because of its subject matter. I think any seventh Nightmare movie would have been in a weird spot releasing that weekend, first of all, and releasing in '94. I mean, horror was very different at that point, and like I think even considering how much people loved Freddy Krueger, like people just didn't show up for it, right? I mean, and this was before it was known of what the movie was like really about, or once before word of mouth even had a chance to spread. I mean, it just didn't do that well.
It didn't even get first in the box office opening weekend. It should have.
Well, it didn't make first in box office because Pulp Fiction opened that weekend.
Yeah, but what we're going to talk about one of the greatest movies of all time.
I mean, and like think about the '90s. Right?
I didn't know that actually. That now I feel like an idiot. I really had no idea that Pulp Fiction opened the same weekend as that.
That's a tough one.
I just think that there's more at play here than just the type of movie that it is, which and not the type being like the meta elements, the Hollywood elements. Like I wouldn't say that has no impact, but I think that maybe you're associating a little bit more with that than like.
I was just trying to rationalize why. Because again, let me be very clear. I watched this movie the entire time being like, "Fuck, this is sick. Fuck, this is cool. Oh my god, I love this. I'm having a lot of fun with this. I'm having a ton of fun. This is like the most fun I had with a Nightmare movie since like 2, right? Where it's just like, and we've been watching these movies for fucking weeks at this point. This is the most fun in this entire series that I've had watching this movie since Shocker, like legitimately. Right. And so I was like, yeah, this is a good movie, right? And I'm like, how is this movie not well received? And that's the answer I got. The other part that I desperately wanted to talk about, and it was my spoiler warning, is Robert Englund Freddy Krueger in this, or is he a coward? I'm still.
What does that even mean?
So like there's like a scene right in this movie where it's like kind of implied that like he has to finish the job, like as if like he has got to take the role of Freddy Krueger on, but also he just like Heather Langenkamp calls him and he's like, yeah, I'm gone. So like, did he just like realize that everybody is in danger and then just fucking bail, or did he become, because like you don't see Freddy Krueger until he like at all. You see him for like half a second when he's pulling when she's in the dream, but you don't see Freddy Krueger out in the real world unless you see him like except for the one scene where you see like after Robert Englund's gone, then you see him like show up a whole bunch. And so the question is, did Robert Englund disappear and become Freddy Krueger? Or did Robert Englund realize what was going on and was like, I'm getting the fuck out of here? Like, and did like the disappear thing from the memes.
I can say with 100% honesty that I didn't think about that at all.
I've thought about it every time I've watched this movie. I've thought about it every time I've watched this movie.
I had the same question where I was like, did he become Freddy or did he just, what happened here?
Did he just like stop? Because he tells Heather, I'll talk to you tomorrow, and then fucking packs up like if we're playing this like totally honestly, he's like, You're not crazy. Shit's weird. He draws a painting of Freddy Krueger and goes, I need to get the fuck out of California right now. Like, that is like, and like Robert Englund, like, is just like, yeah, I'll be a coward for this movie, or I'll become Freddy Krueger. It's not quite clear. Like, and
So
if
what
he
do you
does,
think happens
Wes
then?
Craven goes, my two very good friends, one of them has to kill the other one. It's the only way we could stop Freddy for good. Like, this movie is like, it's so fucked up. It's amazing. I really enjoy it. But like, this question is like right there, and it is never clearly answered. And I love movies that ask that question, because like it doesn't feel like a plot hole. It feels like it's up to interpretation. Like, and that's fun. That's very I've always asked that question. I've never felt bad about it, and it's actually one of the main reasons I love this movie, because it's like, yeah, Robert Englund's a really fun character actor, but also, is he a coward or is he Freddy Krueger? What's happening in this movie? Like, I love it.
I can't say I have a fully formed opinion on that, I guess. I would lean towards him becoming Freddy, because that's how the rest of the movie works. I think internal logic would dictate that he becomes Freddy. Yeah.
Yeah. It
So wait, so in the world of this movie, Heather Langenkamp and their young son burn Robert Englund alive.
True. But he's Freddy Krueger at the time, so
Yeah.
like, actually.
They mutilate and murder Robert Englund.
Well, just remember, like, that all happened in the dream world, so, who knows what happened.
That's very fair. That's very
He just burned alive in his bed or whatever.
And then he wakes up. He's like, "Oh my god, I need to come back from Aspen."
So I have some questions.
I now I don't know if I have the answers.
Yeah. I was expecting an answer from you, and you failed.
How do we feel
One time
about
in 95 episodes? I'll take it.
How do we feel about the new
That's
look
like, wait,
of
wait,
Freddy?
pause. That's not true. We've been asking you for episodes on the Shocker about your review on Shocker, and you had zero answers for us every time.
Yeah, but that wasn't an opinion. A question about the movie itself, regarding a movie that that I have watched. I mean, you're just asking me every single week, like, hey, have you watched this movie yet? Have you watched this movie yet? You could ask me that question for years, and the answer will be no.
But it needs to be yes by next
It
week.
needs to be yes by next week.
Well, I don't mean like Shocker specifically, but just in general, you could just ask me about the movie. And I'll
ask him
surely,
for, like,
surely I'll watch Shocker.
Okay.
Surely.
Tonight. You'll watch it tonight.
I'm not gonna watch it tonight.
So how do we feel about
Maybe I'll watch
Freddy's new look and the new claw and all that jazz?
The new look is maybe I would say it's like the third or fourth best look. I like it, but like I don't know. I mean, it being like the demon's interpretation of what like the Freddy is supposed to look like, right? Because it's this, the whole concept, right, is that it's not actually Freddy Krueger,
Darker,
right? It's an actual,
scarier.
it's a real demon.
It's
that
a real
has
tulpa. Yeah.
taken to liking the aesthetics of Freddy Krueger and has made it its own. And in that context, I mean, there are things about it that I love. Like, I like the makeup. I don't think it's as good as like the original look or some of the refined ones in the latter entries, but it's cool. It's different. It's easy to look at, and it still looks like Freddy, which I think is a big part of it. It looks less like a burned person, which is really intentional, and I like that. And I love the claw. I'm all in on
the claw. Is phenomenal.
I agree with that.
I love reaching back. The original Nightmare on Elm Street, the claw was supposed to be like in his fingers, right? That was the original idea, and I love that they brought that back for this one. And it looks great. Super cool claw. Yeah. Love the trench coat.
Well, they also do this thing where they give him a super Freddy physique, but like they put Robert Englund in a muscle suit, which is very funny to me. But like, weirdly, it again, Super Freddy sucks. We all agree, except for Corbin.
We don't all agree.
We all agree except for Corbin, who was wrong. It's all good. It's fine, right?
So you and Alan agree. We don't all agree.
We all agree, except for Corbin, who is wrong. It's fine. It's all good. I'm objectively right all the time. But like, this proves once and for all that Super Freddy should have just been Robert Englund in a muscle suit because it works.
Yeah, I mean, even
Like,
Freddy, even Super Freddy enjoyers such as myself agree with that.
Cannot imagine enjoying Super
World's
Freddy.
strongest Super
What-
Freddy enjoyer.
What is not
world's
to enjoy?
weakest?
Yeah.
World's weakest New Nightmare fan.
Oh, good golly.
So how do we think the meta narrative succeeded or failed in this film?
I think it succeeds in every way except for the conversation that Heather has with Wes, which is a little bit
On the
info
nose.
dumpy.
Yeah.
It's a little bit much. It's kind of a long scene. It's in the very middle of the movie, and they just explain the whole thing.
Yeah.
They literally
Yeah.
sit down and two characters just explain it to you.
Yeah, how does Wes Craven know all of it? How does he know all of it?
Well, and
Because
the
he's
man-
been dealing with it right for the whole time.
Yeah.
And
The
what's frustrating
implications
about
that
that
he's
scene
known.
too is like earlier in the film, John is like, yeah, Wes told me, he was up to the point where Dylan, God wouldn't take Dylan. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's like such a better way to talk about a meta narrative with like those like interactions characters have with Wes Craven.
By the way, Robert says
himself.
that.
Robert's okay. I wasn't sure it was Robert or John. But yeah, no, that's a phenomenal way to like do the meta narrative thing. Like it works so well there, but then they kind of just go, "Hey, here's the whole movie."
I
You're
think except for obviously, yes, we're all in agreement. I'm going to add my own sin. I think it's better the older you watch it, because as more and more information comes out, you recognize that, like, yeah, Wes Craven, Heather Langenkamp, Robert Englund, all of them had like parts to play in this, because every single one of them, like, their versions of themselves are weirdly accurate to who they were at the time. Like Robert Englund was very much like, let's let this Freddy Krueger thing run for as long as fucking possible, baby. Let's do it. I'm fine with it. I like it. I love being Freddy. Everything's cool. Everything's dope. He's still, to this day, and you tell him, hey, I want you to play a cameo where you're a dream doctor, like in latter episodes, like in mid seasons of Supernatural. He shows up as he's like, oh yes, I make you die for a couple hours, and then I bring you a couple minutes, and I bring you out so you can experience the joy of death. It's the sleep of death or whatever. It's like he's super into that shit. Right? Heather Langenkamp was like, I'm done. I love Wes Craven. He's a very good friend of mine, but like I want to do TV roles. I want to do family friendly shit. And like she came back to it because Wes asked her, and like the stalker shit. Like it's just like, it's so true to what the people were living in at that time, right? Even the fact that like they got an actor to play her husband, but her husband quite literally was a special effect artist that she met on the set of the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, yeah, like that's real. Like everything about it is just so real, and like you read into it, it's like, oh fuck, that's sick. Like it's like just how real they made the movie, and like it's something that I think that you couldn't. That I think adds to the movie being an experience, right? But you couldn't have seen that, like, watching this in '94, right? Because we don't have a Wikipedia article on each individual actor that tells me what they were doing in the early '90s, right? That was like, oh yes, New Nightmare tells all about this, hooray! Like, it's like simultaneously like the meta narrative is talking about like how Freddy Krueger has affected them as like literal human beings, as well as like how like the landscape of Freddy Krueger. It's very cool. It's very interesting. The meta dump exists because the rest of because I don't think you're ever going to get a good explanation of what's going on in this movie without a meta dump. I think it's necessary.
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing about the meta dump, right? Is like, yeah, like I don't know how you could have passed along all that information.
Yeah.
Like it is kind of a lot.
Yeah.
And even going further, like it is a little bit weird from a storytelling perspective, from a movie's perspective. But viewing New Nightmare as real life, that's what it would have happened. I mean, he would have just sat there and told her everything. Like that's how real life does work.
Yeah, it's like, oh,
it's
dude,
just
you
weird
gotta
for
like
a movie.
listen, this is like, yeah. If like literally, it's like, by the way, guys, Bobby being objectively right has actually formed its own demon inside of us, and I've been trying to hold it back for years with us doing this podcast. But I need Corbin to prove me wrong one more time.
I don't know if I can do it. That's what I'm supposed to say.
It's actually it's in my script that I have here.
No. Corbin would go out of state, and I would go to Indiana, and it would be up to Alan the entire time.
Oh God, we're fucked. Demon's coming in.
Oh,
It's
boy.
true.
But Corbin's child's having sleep problems now.
Yeah. So one thing I did. So we've kind of been all over the place with this film. Let's gush a little bit. We haven't done any
I'm down to
gushing.
gush.
I'm down.
And there's
I've
certainly
gushed
things
a
to
lot.
gush.
That's not true.
I mean,
I've gushed the entire time for the most part.
Yeah, I feel like I haven't
gushed.
Oh, you definitely have not gushed.
No, you-
So
yeah.
maybe you go first. You
Go gush. Go gush.
I
Gush on us.
fucking loved
Gush
the
all over.
blood in this film. I don't know what it is about the specific blood, but like it is just so good because it's so like it's not Evil Dead over the top, but it kind of flirts with that a little bit. Specifically, like right in the beginning when like the claw just is like shaking while it's in the dude's chest and it's just like shooting blood. It's awesome. It's so ridiculous. And then Julie's kill. My God, how good! Freddie,
Love it
like
so much they had to do it twice.
Yeah, such a
so
callback.
good.
It's
Such a
the kill
callback.
from the first. It's the
know,
same kill,
but it's so good. It's still that good. I
feels-
love it.
No,
I don't
it feels
disagree.
good. It feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like
just-
it because it's obviously it's part of that like overarching sequence, right? Of like the world becoming the first movie with Heather becoming Nancy, and then like the kill recreation.
Literally.
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah.
That is I think the best transition they've done to tell us that you're in a dream without directly saying you're in
You
a
know
dream.
what? No, dude. Best bit in the entire thing. The breadcrumbs. Like they ham fist this breadcrumbs so hard. You're like, okay, so like there's gonna be like a trail, and then they make it the pills. Fucking like genius sleeping pills. Like, oh my God, like you little because like you see the little yellow sleeping pills, like whatever, fine, sleeping pills, and like you don't even think about it. But then then all of a sudden she's like the breadcrumbs and the little yellow sleeping pills. Like, oh, genius! Oh my God, so smart. So like, sorry.
That
was, like-
actually, so I watched it. I watched it with my wife, and that was the big thing that we had a conversation about that after the fact. We were like, oh, if this was a modern movie, she would have died from taking those pills. Like the movie would have had a very different ending, I think, because like she really slammed those sleeping pills.
Yeah,
She has to die to save her son or some shit. Yeah,
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's but. Not that I'm looking for Heather to have died in this movie. I love the way that it goes, but
yeah, I think it's beautiful.
so did we all catch our Insidious crossover with this one?
Yes.
Incredible,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
good.
I was like, what
so
the
good.
fuck? What is she doing in
Yeah.
this movie?
Yeah, right.
Oh, Elise. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, what are
Playing
you
as the
talking about?
nurse.
Yeah.
What's she doing
Yeah.
here? Well, because like again, right? Insidious is, I guess, anything that's to do with like dream and sleep automatically gets compared to a Nightmare on Elm Street, right?
Yeah.
But like,
But Insidious
for-
really does kind of have a lot to do with Nightmare. Like,
I mean, even Darth Maul Goblin has like a claw hand.
yep.
Like,
And his little workshop, and
yeah. I
Maybe Bobby loves Insidious.
I'm not gonna lie. When I compare it to The Conjuring, I think I do. I didn't enjoy.
You did say that when we watched Insidious.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy those movies that much, and obviously I didn't enjoy those movies that much. But like, those movies do stick with you. Like there are a lot of really memorable scenes. Like it's like, I think it's like the same thing with like, no, because like Saw's super goofy because it's a soap opera filled with gore, right? But
all I
like
need in a
Insidious
soap
is just highs and lows, right? Because like you get like a boom and it's like and it's like, oh, what? But wait, here it is, and then it's like, like I don't like. I'm gonna go see the next Insidious movie in theaters.
I can't
probably.
wait. I'm pumped
And
for the next one.
And I'm gonna be honest with you.
Genuinely excited.
And I'll be honest with you, I didn't see Scream in theaters, and I feel real bad about that. I didn't see a lot of movies
That's
in theaters.
wild.
I haven't had time to see movies
You
in
didn't see
theaters.
Evil Dead either, did you?
Yeah, no, not.
I didn't see Evil Dead.
Yeah,
I meant to.
is it still in theaters?
It's still in. Yeah.
Oh, I might. If I've got 2 weekends ahead of me, I've got time. Yeah, I will be seeing Evil Dead in theaters. That will happen. I'm not worried about that. Because again, favorite movie franchise of all time. Love me seeing Evil Dead.
Sure.
But we're not talking about.
But anyway,
a great.
So
franchise. We're talking about different
have
franchise.
I have
Gush.
two other
Gush
points of gush
Gushin?
to fruit gusher out of me. So there were a couple of quotes that I really loved, but there was one when they were talking about killing Freddy, and Heather was like, "You can't get rid of Freddy," or she says, "Every kid knows about Freddy. He's like Santa Claus or King Kong." And I was like, man, like what a great line that really like wraps it all up. You know, like the whole culture about Freddy Krueger and the truth about him too. You know, even today, like he is one of those horror characters that like everybody you just know, even if you've never seen Nightmare. You know,
Would you say that he's arguably the most iconic horror movie character of all time?
I mean, him or Michael Myers, right? It's got to be one of them.
Oh yes, him or Michael. I agree. Him or Michael Myers. Yeah. Like I said for weeks, and you all fought me on it. Because you're like Jason Voorhees. No, Freddy Krueger, then probably Michael, then probably Freddy, then Pinhead.
Freddy, Michael, Freddy, Pinhead. He says.
That's like, oh yeah, no. I stand by that.
Yeah,
I
thought you were just
actually-
kidding, honestly.
I actually would say, and I love Jason Voorhees. I love Friday so much, but I think that the reality is that especially right now, Ghostface is much higher. Than,
that's fair. Yeah, it's probably
Scream is
Ghostface,
having such a renaissance, and not that he ever lost it in popularity. So like that's got to be it.
Well, yeah, that's fair. That's my bad. That's my bad. That's on
good.
me. That's on me. Looking only
You've
to
been
the
proven
80s.
See,
wrong.
there it is. I've stopped the objectively correct Diva.
Whoa!
The other thing I loved about this movie is that this Freddy, the demon Freddy, is so much lighter on quips. It's much more like the first movie, but even less so. But the one great line is right before he kills Julie, and he looks at Dylan and he says, "Hey Dylan, you ever play Skin the Cat?" And then he drags her up the ceiling. Like that was great. Like that was such a great callback to the version of Freddy that I think people really fell in love with. Right, like the quips right before something just like absolutely disgusting, and that the latter movies really
overdid
a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, so. To that point, they bring back the implication that Freddy is kind of a child molester, because like there's that it's very small. It's a throwaway scene, but like it's super fucked up. She picks up the phone and Freddy just goes, "I touched him," and then he like spits up like white shit, and it's just like that's super fucked up.
Tongues Heather when he does that too, which is
like
very
it's
gross.
just like there's just that like implication that like Freddy Krueger still fucking diddled kids, right? Like there's just this like, and
we'll codify that in Freddy versus Jason very clearly.
No, we won't. Freddy versus. There's another thing we'll codify it in. We don't have to do spoilers to that movie yet, but goddamn, that was a bad call. You'll see. You'll get there. But yeah, I thought it was really cool because again, just like I was like, what the fuck? Like, oh. Like you just get that moment of just like I touched him, like what the fuck is that? Like, and then they leave it alone for the rest of the movie. That's really fun. Like, not fun, but you know what I mean. Like it's just like that. Like there's just that fucked up.
Yeah.
Well, I heard what I said, and I need to correct.
It's okay. I think. It was understood. I would say it was understood.
I don't know about that, but I'm going to be very clear. No, bad. It's bad, but it was like it's one of those like it's a fucked up narrative plot that you're like, okay, like are they going to do more with this or not? And they don't, and I think it's probably the better choice.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Overall, I think that what this movie does really well, besides the meta elements and the actual slasher elements of it all, was like it being in a weird way kind of its own like requel. Like it kind of remakes the first movie in like the real world. Uh, the throwbacks to the original movie are just done in such a great way that it's super obvious without being like ham-fisted or corny. Like Freddy stretching his arms out, or like the stairs, turning into like the sunken steps, or
Mm-hmm.
my favorite part was when Nancy enters the dream world and she's Nancy properly, and she turns around and sees the house, and like the original theme song comes on. It's just like, oh, what a great
Yeah.
little bit. Just what
Yeah,
a great
that
bit.
whole transition into the dream world at the end is like, it's so good.
Can
Yeah.
I give a weird thing that I noticed?
Sure.
Yeah.
There is like a pretty awesome this is like acting wise, variance in death acting. Like there's a guy who gets there's a guy who screams like a baby. There's a guy who like screams very much like masculinely. There's there's a lot of there's variance in the way people die in this movie in a very interesting way, where it's like you don't see that in every movie. Like usually you see people act like a lot of the men act in like one particular way. Every so often you'll see somebody who like really understands the assignment and like goes like, okay, what would it be like to not want to die and die in that moment? Like, and then they do like the you're pissing and shitting your pants type death. But like you get the whole gambit of deaths here. It's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like again, even like Julie, her death is like it's very much like a quote unquote like very feminine girl death, but she still does like the final girl like Dylan get out of here, go run, like that type of stuff, where it's like I don't know, it's just very everybody who dies in this movie does a really fucking good job at it. And like I just like I it was like this is I've seen this movie 3 times, and this is like the first time I noticed that like oh fuck, like everybody like fucking like they go for it on getting killed. So like especially the second guy in the dream where he's like vibrating, it reminded me of the original Fear Street, where the girl gets like thrown through the bread cutter, or he's just like panicking and like no please like it's just like that's fucked. That's pretty fucked up right there. Like so yeah.
Man, what a great scene.
Yeah.
So good.
Great
That
open.
scene's great. But we're not here to talk about how good or bad that scene is. We're here to talk about how good or bad Nightmare on Elm or Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Wrong, bad and wrong.
I corrected it. Now, if we were going to do that, we would have to make our choice on a scale of 0 to 5 with half points allowed to determine just how good or bad this film is. How do we want to start? Spoilers abound.
True.
Yeah.
True and proper.
You pick who goes first.
Bobby.
Shit. Shit. Honestly, when I think 3.5
Always be
out of
honest.
5. I
How
think
many?
3.5 out of 5.
Wow.
I liked it a lot. But there's some flaws in this movie. That info dump is a lot. There's some choices that we didn't really talk a lot about that I disagree with. Again, this movie almost at times feels too personal, where like I can understand why people would understandably be turned off by it, where it's like, okay, like I don't need to know about these people's lives, and there's like there's parts of this movie where like things happen, but again, for like maybe a normie, it does not feel like anything happens. Where it's just like there's a lot of like talking and like, oh yeah, should you be in the new movie? And it's just like, okay, so like let's get like the plot's always happening, but sometimes it doesn't feel like it is. And so like it's not necessarily it's not pacing issues, but there's vibe issues. Do you get what I mean when I say that? Like there's not
No.
issues with the okay. I don't know.
Yeah,
There's just something
I,
about
I do, but I'll yeah,
yeah,
I do, but I
like
don't. You know what I mean?
yeah, like
Yeah.
there's not issues with pacing, but there's some issues with vibes. So 3.5 out of 5 for me.
Okay, so I'm gonna go next right away because I just disagree with that, you know, and I think that like especially if you listen, if you listen all the way, you know, some of Bobby's points he made right in the beginning, and I disagreed then, and yeah, like it is a very different vibe, you know, and I think that that is all for the better, you know. I mean, yeah, the plot is always happening, and there's a lot of scenes of characters just talking and getting through things, right? But it's never poorly acted, it's never poorly paced, and I think that, you know, movies with a lot of conversational scenes are totally fine. And I think that, you know, this movie has a lot of them, and yeah, like the actual slashing isn't as you know, 100 miles per hour as some of the other ones have been, or as its peers often have been, but I think, especially for a 90s slasher of this style, I think it felt appropriate. I really, really love this movie. I don't know if I made that apparent, honestly, during the review, but this is probably my second favorite of the entire franchise, and I think it's probably the second best. So I am going to give this a 4.5 out of 5, which is the same score that I gave Dream Warriors. I think it's a little bit better than Dream Warriors, but, you know, not all the way up to a 5. It does
What did
have
I give Dream
problems.
Warriors?
3.5.
Okay, so let me
So
addend
there you
my
go.
score right now. Let me go ahead and addend my score. It's a 4 out of 5. I'm sorry. Let me be
Okay.
very clear. This is way better than Dream Warriors. I still stand by some of these points. But it is either the second or the third. I really, 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 I was really smitten with 2. I really
Yeah,
liked
that's
2 a
you
lot.
were really in on too.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah.
So
Sorry,
yeah,
I want to be very clear
no,
on
it's
that.
fine.
I
I
did
mean,
not check
that's
my score
yeah.
beforehand. It's a 4 for me. Like I like this at least a half a point, maybe a full point above Dream Warriors for sure. So 4 out of 5. Sorry, not to
No,
steal you, but
yeah,
you
no,
you
you're
reminded
good.
me
I
that
mean,
that's
you know,
something I
I'm
need to look
basically
into.
yeah, right. I mean, I'm basically, you know, I'm at the end here, but you know, the point is just that I really love this movie and I love what it does for the genre and for the franchise, and I'm a huge Wes Craven guy, so I'm a little bit biased, but they know
Big
that's just
same.
how it is.
Yeah,
So.
big same. Yeah, I know. I agree with you. All right, Alan, take us home.
I was in a little bit of a weird position with this film. So I enjoyed this movie. I think this movie is, as I mentioned in the beginning, this is the best acted film, probably of all of them, because it kind of, if this movie was acted poorly, boy, would we would be having a very different discussion right now,
Yeah.
especially with
Oh,
just
yeah.
the
Absolutely.
sheer amount of plot that hinges on like these character interactions and all this stuff. This really wasn't what I thought this movie was going to be. I kind of briefly looked at it and saw meta narrative, and I'm like, okay, this is Wes Craven. I don't need to read further. I no more notes. I understand what's going to happen here. And while I did get that, it definitely was the first draft of that, or at least the first draft of that being so very central to everything. All that being said, I enjoyed this movie, and it's definitely one I liked more compared to the like others within the franchise, but I'm at a 3 out of 5 on this one. It didn't have as much of the things that I kind of want out of Nightmare. Like I do enjoy the wackiness of like Dream Warriors, for example, and I didn't think that that's what I was going to get with this by any stretch of the imagination. But I also kind of wanted something more. Like this movie, I finished this movie and it left me wanting. Like I definitively was like, this was interesting, but it wasn't exactly all that I thought it would be out of, you know, Wes Craven coming back to the Nightmare franchise. So left me in a little bit of a weird position where I have to, it is objectively a good movie. It's objectively above average, if you ask me, especially considering its peers. But for me, not much more than that. Which was sad because I wanted to love this movie a lot.
I'm glad I went up to 4. I just want to be clear on that. I'm glad I changed my mind.
I bring up the heel, man. I don't know what to tell you.
The 3.5 didn't feel right when I heard what I gave Dream Warriors. I just want to be clear. But hey, me changing my score mid spoiler cast is not all we do on this show.
Oh,
We also decide whether or not Wes Craven's A New Nightmare is essential to horror as a whole. Now, of course, dear listener, you've listened to this podcast enough to know that it's spoiler free. However, I think that we should go in the order in which we did the reviews for the first part. And I'll start off by saying that if you listen to the spoiler cast, Corbin kind of answered the question for us both. When I say I think yes, this is the first meta slasher I think that we can really think of. This movie very much feels like it walked so Scream could run. It is the last in the mainstay canon for a traditional A Nightmare on Elm Street movie. It is the last A Nightmare on Elm Street movie to star Robert Englund that was called has a nightmare in the title, right? There's a lot of reasons why this movie belongs in Essentiality. The last of which is it's actually a good movie. So like there's a lot here to eat. There's a lot here to enjoy. There's a lot of firsts that happen to it. And it's just kind of like it's so weird and unique. And there's something about unique movies that always make me go, this is different. This is a movie I'd always recommend, and I put it on essential score. So for all of those reasons, I'm in. Essential.
all right.
Nice.
Corbin?
Yeah, so I mean Bobby said it for me basically. I mean there's some of my points and some of Bobby's points added on, and like that's just I think it's just that simple, right? And I think that its position in the franchise is almost irrelevant. I mean, I think it being the last one proper helps, and I think it being the capstone basically to Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street trilogy, realistically, is pretty great. But it being the first of its kind in the meta slasher subgenre, and also being the one that's meta in a very different way. Meta slashers after this really took after Scream, which is more about the genre as a whole, and this one was much more introspective, right, about Nightmare and the making of it and everything. And I think for it, kickstarting that wave, and also for being so unique in its theming, like it's got to be yes. So for me, it's a yes.
Yeah.
So you guys know the phrase, like someone said it louder and then that got picked up. You know what I mean when I say that?
Yeah.
I feel like this is the film that got shouted over because Scream exists. While this may have been the progenitor, it is not the master. It was surpassed by its Padawan, by its own next creation, even. That's not to say that this movie doesn't deserve its praises, that it doesn't have a place at the table, but it's a little harder for me to square that peg, basically, to be like, okay, so yeah, it gave us the start, but it really didn't propel. And I guess the question I have to answer in my head then is, what does that mean in terms of essentiality? Do you say, well, yeah, it was the start. You don't have the start, you don't have it. And I get that. Like, that makes perfect sense. But at the same time, it's like, looking back on it, with the power of being able to look back, it's like,
hindsight.
Is it really I couldn't remember the word, man. I was trying.
Looking
with
back.
the power
Hindsight.
of sight into the hind. I don't.
Yeah. It's with this mystical, magical power that I can't think of.
It doesn't have a name. They've never
No,
an English word
could
for
not. I could not
Yeah.
imagine it having a name that makes perfect
it.
logical
It's
sense.
been lost to time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
easily,
been lost to
easily.
hind.
Yeah. All right.
I'm waxing poetically here, but at the end of the day, I am going to say yes. I wanted to make that a lot more flowery.
You're gonna say
What?
yes?
Yeah, I'm still saying yes. That it
What?
is essential.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your entire. It sounded like you were
I
going to say
know.
no.
Oh, I
You
know.
def-
And let me finish now. So
He did the reverse me.
I
I
did.
know.
I reverse Uno carded. It was great.
Now you're drawing 4.
Yes, I am. Fuck. What if I actually had a pair of Uno cards right then, ready for that moment?
That would be amazing.
These are the things I need to be prepared for these. But I guess at the end of the day, where I was kind of building to. Call me Carrot Top.
The prop comic of our audio podcast.
We've got video.
That's true.
Yeah, sure, it got shouted down. Yeah, sure, it's not the meta slasher that became what meta slashers are. But like, Wes Craven single-handedly went ahead and said, "Okay, here's a great idea for a slasher, and I'm going to make 3 of them." And at the end of the day, I'm going to cap everything off with a new spin on the entirety of the genre, and then I'm going to revolutionize horror and bring slashers back with my next film after that. And I don't know that you can get to Scream without having first gone through this boss fight. That is Wes Craven's New Nightmare. So I think it does deserve a place in the annals of horror. So yes.
Can I add one thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this movie feels like it's really interesting, right? Because you get Shocker, which Shocker was there's a certain meta narrative there, making fun of A Nightmare on Elm Street, and then you get a meta narrative making fun of the industry as a whole, which is Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and then you get Scream, which is like let's just make fun of horror as a whole. And I think that like it's weird that these movies don't get talked about in the same way that like the Apocalypse trilogy doesn't get talked about. You know, like because like these like now that I'm thinking about it, these 3 all have something there, and I think part of the reason why they don't get talked about in the same way with Apocalypse because those are like 3 standalone movies, and Shocker's the only standalone movie in those 3, but they're all like very clearly a trajectory that Wes Craven wanted to go on. And I think that I'm just taking another opportunity to talk about a movie that Corbin hasn't seen. But it's very good.
The Immutable Shocker.
Speaking of a cartoon from the CW back when we were 12, what are handles?
Static Shocker.
Yep. That's where we're going with it. It's a Static Shocker reference.
Yeah, you can.
Well, his name was Static Shock, by the way, but yeah,
it is. Actually, it's usually just Static now. So,
yeah.
You can find me on Twitter at Corbangerang or on Twitter, Instagram, and Mastodon at Bolters and Bourbon, and that is my primary platform. Is where I talk about Warhammer and other hobby content. I try to post when I paint or have other random takes regarding the hobby. That is all simultaneously what I spend most of my time with doing besides this. I have, though, been trying to, I mentioned it a couple weeks ago, I've been trying to watch a couple more movies, at least like one other movie a week, because I love movies and
like Shocker.
It's tough. Yeah, and so obviously I didn't watch Shocker, but in fact I did watch Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever, and I'd give it a very solid, it's okay, out of 5. Not an amazing movie, altogether too long, and the lead is outacted by literally everybody else in the movie, to the surprise of, I would say, nobody. And it still like has all the
denied the vaccine. Was it?
That's the one. That's the one. Yep. The one who was cast for a long-term secondary or tertiary role and suddenly thrust into the primary position. That's the one.
Whoops.
It has all the normal MCU problems of like way too much bad CGI, like an awkward final set piece, like strange morality plays. Like it's just, it had a lot of potential, I think, and some scenes are really good, but it also would have been a lot better if it was just at least half an hour shorter.
Is Marvel
done? Too much.
Are we done with Marvel for a while?
I've been done with Marvel since the end of the Infinity War.
I think that it's just like
done.
Marvel movies are just entering into the same position as like, you know, the MCU and like comic book movies are not the first mega trend, that we've had in cinema,
yeah.
obviously. And I would say that, yeah, I think that it's over.
Are we
I
hitting?
think that
Are
the
we
mega
hitting the
trend is over.
slasher? Are we hitting the like the late age of slashers with
maybe.
MCU?
Horror is on a huge come up right now.
Huh.
Oh, but you just mean MCU. Yeah, comic book movies are they're on the down. I mean, Shazam made like what $40 million. Like it's it's just tough.
What was the budget of that film?
3 times that much at least, because it's a comic book movie. They all cost well over $100 million. We'll still get good ones. You'll still get like the Batman 2 is, I'm sure, going to be amazing, but whatever. Besides that, I started to play Jedi Fallen Order. We all love Star Wars here, and I never played it, and Jedi Survivor coming out reminded me that I never played it. So I'm working through that now, and it's been very fun. So yeah, follow me at Bolters and Bourbon or at Corbangarang.
You can find me at twitch.tv/threadweenie. All my relevant socials are there. What have I been doing? Just been hanging out for the most part. I played the Diablo for the server slam this last weekend.
Played a lot of Diablo.
Very upset at Diablo. We don't need to get into it, but I'm very upset. Still gonna play it day one.
I'm not upset because for the same reason Bobby's upset.
Yeah. Corbin got lucky. I did not when it came to the amount of people who were at the server at the time when I was playing.
Hate to see it.
Twice. 2 times. Twice.
I'm sorry, Bob.
Yep. Tried 2 times. Did not happen. Anyway, twitch.tv/threadweenie. Follow me now so you can see me when I do stuff then.
You can find me at a seal punter just about anywhere. I was just up in their neck of the woods this weekend. Got to see my mom for Mother's Day and surprise her, so that was real fun. We got it on video of me surprising her. It's great. It was a whole conspiracy between my sister, my stepdad, and all of us, so that was fun. I haven't been doing a whole lot other than that, playing my normal rounds of disc golf. It's nice. The weather's good out here, so, we try to get those reps in. Gotta get some more reps of boarding actions in, though, because, we often talk about this little game called Warhammer. You guys hear us talk about it. We do our Super Saturday, second Saturday of the month. We get together, have a grand old time. I host one of those a year, and it's in June, because it's nice out. I've got a patio. It's going to be a grand old time. So I'm hosting in June. So I have to get, 1, prepared to win this tournament because I want a gilded title, but that's neither here nor there. And 2, to host and have everybody over and have a grand old time. So yeah, a seal punter, just about anywhere.
Nice. You can find the podcast just about anywhere at Essential Scares. We are active on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and we would love it if you gave us a follow. In the link in our bio, you can find our Discord, and we're on there every single day talking about all sorts of stuff, movies, music, games, and more. If you ever have suggestions for us, or you ever just want to chat, pop in there, give us a shout, and we'd love to just hang out for a little bit. But that wraps us up for the week. Thank you so much to everybody for listening and for watching. If you like the show, give us a thumbs up, a rating, a subscribe, a review. Hit the bell on YouTube, all that kind of stuff.
They help.
Next week, we are finally, basically kind of finishing the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise with the critically lauded 2010 remake. I would say one of us is excited, one of us doesn't know what's going to happen, and one of us is not interested at all. So it's going to be great. It's going to be a great week. But yeah, thanks so much. And thank you to Bobby and Alan for being on the show with me this week. Yeah. I'm
going to be so mad.
Corbin, and this has been Essential Scares.
Play that new metal break, baby.